Hello, everyone. My name is Erin. I'm the Senior Researcher and Content Strategist at Zpryme. Today, I'm talking with Evan O'Mahony, the Vice President of Technology Services at CPS Energy. How are you today, Evan?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Erin. Happy to be here. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well. I recently moved to Colorado and it's starting to get quite cold. So as a Texan, I'm still acclimating, but it's nice to I heard my coworkers or I saw my coworkers talking on our messaging platform about how they walked outside this weekend and they were sweating when they weren't expecting to, and that didn't happen to me. So I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, a little different climate for sure, but I'm sure you'll adjust, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to talk about a few things. You just started your role at CPS, but we also want to talk about our startup pilot pitch competition start at ETS. But let's start with kind of the past few months at CPS, what you've been dealing with, how your experience has been. So what would you say has been the most challenging part of your role during COVID-19, especially given that you started just about a month before the pandemic really hit?
Yeah, it's a good question, Erin, and as you can imagine, it's come up a few times, right? I joined CPS Energy in December of last year, so had about a good 3 months before we really started seeing the impact of COVID-19. As I reflect and look for some silver lining, I think COVID actually helped me learn a lot about the organization, maybe faster than I would have otherwise, right? Very quickly, I had to really become aware of all of the different aspects of the services that we provide and how our employees work and what we would need to do from a technology perspective to enable them to continue to work and be successful so we could provide our critical services and power the greater city of San Antonio. So, I think the biggest challenge for me was really just trying to get up to speed quickly. Our organization is extremely collaborative, and there were tremendous amount of avenues to really get plugged into what the needs of our internal customers, our end users, our employees needed to be successful. And I think we did a really good job responding very quickly to make sure that they had all of the technology tools to work and, of course, remain safe, whether that was working remote and transitioning, to a home office or, a core of our employees that needed to continue to be out in the field and have access to the tools to remain engaged, working in that manner as well.
To that point, I've talked to a lot of utilities about how they've had to transition to a more remote work environment. Particularly, like, how are you enabling the people who can't really do their jobs from home? That's been something that's, a lot of utilities have faced challenges with. Was there anything in particular that you felt helped CPS Energy be successful in keeping those workers connected? Was it, making sure they had specific devices or, maybe something else?
Yeah, I mean, luckily, a lot of our field teams were already supplied with mobile devices, right, to be able to access information that they needed to do their job out in the field. We also have a good supply of mobile devices, just in terms of an iPhone as an example, that are deployed. For us, the focus was making sure that we were keeping our employees engaged and that those touch points were would remain as frequent as if they were starting their shift in the office, or maybe now they're dispatching from home, right? So, we deployed a lot of solutions for the traditional office environment, collaboration tools like we're on right now, right? Whether it's Teams or WebEx or other technologies. But there are also ways to keep things somewhat basic and just leverage FaceTime, right? You didn't always have to deploy the latest and greatest technology just to be able to pick up the phone and have an interaction with your employees. So we tried to leverage as much as we can a lot of the technologies that were already in the hands of our employees, to make sure that they remain connected and we kept those touch points frequent.
Yeah, and I would assume that would make it, well, you don't really have to worry about adoption because they already have those tools, but also just the familiarity with using those features like FaceTime helped with keeping, those workers connected? Because I think also a lot of utilities had some challenges with adoption of the devices and kind of how to use them, but you kind of just skip that because of the familiarity with already using those devices and the features on those devices. So that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk a little bit about START at ETS. We're really excited to have CPS Energy as the host partner for START at ETS, the pitch competition. Can you talk about why it's important to continue to build innovation ecosystems during such a challenging time?
Yeah, Erin, we at CPS Energy are always looking for new ways to innovate and drive really positive disruption in the industry, right? You can see some of that with some of our initiatives that we're working today, like our Flex Power Bundle, where we're looking for new innovative ways for energy generation. And I think the need to rethink the way that we have traditionally worked has never been more relevant, right? I mean, we reflect back on the last 6 or 8 months. The need to challenge the status quo and to look for new ideas, I think, has never been more timely. For us, the Start at ETS pitch competition is a great way for organizations and startups to really share their thoughts and ideas around how we could be more innovative as a utility industry, right? The other thing that's important is we look at a competition, a platform like this is, a lot of the traditional means of exposure for this type of ideation and sharing of innovative ideas, have really been put on pause. Things like conventions and symposiums and other avenues to try to get that outreach. So, the idea of a digital format, which is being leveraged for Start at ETS, I think provides a great platform to rethink how we can innovate and really provide an avenue to raise awareness and see some of those new ideas and hopefully be able to integrate some of those into the way we work. So we're excited to be a host partner for the event for sure.
To the point you made about having to rethink how you work, how have your interactions changed both internally and with external peers, suppliers, or partners? How have those changed during COVID-19? And maybe what were some of the lessons you learned or some of the changes that you made that you intend to keep in the long term? Like, they're not just changes you made as a result of the pandemic, and when the pandemic goes away, you're going to go back to your old ways. But what are the ones that you've made that you intend to kind of keep doing in terms of the way you work?
Yeah, I think that interactions have become more frequent and really more engaging. Employee engagement for us at CPS Energy is at the core of our people first strategy. And, while we've become more physically distant, technology has really allowed us to remain socially connected as an organization. For me, and I look at my team, so I've got an organization of just over 200 individuals. And, I have daily huddles with my direct reports. So we have very frequent touch points to ensure alignment. That's really helped us, I think, be successful at continuing to drive our various initiatives forward, especially considering the amount of disruption that was unplanned and obviously impacted the way that we were operating before. We try to cascade that meeting frequency throughout all of our teams within the organization. So again, it just continues to reinforce consistent messaging and focus on the things that are important and what we should be working on. I think the same is true when we look at our strategic suppliers and partners. The term partnership is used so much just as we interact with vendors, and you always wonder, what does a partnership really look like? And I'll just say, no better time than during a pandemic than you really learn and see, which of those strategic vendors, which of those organizations you work with really are partners. And through that increased frequency of engagement, I think that there's been a lot of collaboration and sharing of best practices and what's worked well and what hasn't. So when I apply that to maybe some lessons learned or how does this apply to the future, I think it's making sure that we don't lose sight of the value that we've been able to derive just through the frequency of interactions, right? Maybe a traditional, hour and a half weekly team meeting is now a 15 or 20-minute daily huddle, right? It allows people to talk about things more frequently, make sure that we're progressing and working on the things that are important. And I think inherently, as a result, have made us a much more agile organization in the way that we work. So I think it's important to keep that level of engagement, occurring, and especially at the frequency, whether it's internally or externally, just really taking advantage of the dialogue and the collaboration.
Great, thank you, Evan. And so last question, which is going back to something that you had mentioned about how difficult it has been for startups to kind of get engaged or be a part of the innovation process that happens within utilities. What advice do you have for startups who have been in the space but finding it challenging to get traction during COVID-19 as it relates to maybe like trying to set up meetings or funding or trying to find mentors? What advice do you have for these startups?
Yeah, Erin, I think networking is more important now than ever, right? I can say, speaking for myself, I probably get hundreds of emails a day from, vendors, different organizations trying to talk about products or services or, figure out how they could help. For me, I think when I hear that from an individual in my network, from a peer or from someone I've worked with before or somebody that I've just interacted with in the community or throughout the industry, it helps kind of escalate and move that dialogue along. So I would really encourage, organizations and startups to really build that network to get their message out there. I mentioned before how a lot of the traditional ways of learning about new products and services aren't the norm anymore in our current environment. So I think as a result, we all need to be a little bit more receptive to new ideas and potential partners. One of the things I've done that has worked really well is every couple of weeks I carve out an hour on my calendar and, I look at those messages coming in from different suppliers and different partners, and I plug them into that hour block and I get everybody on the phone. I say, hey, we're just going to do a round robin and you've got 5 minutes to share your pitch, right? Because you don't know what you're missing out on if you never give, these other organizations the opportunity to share how they may be able to help us do something better or help us be more productive or more efficient as an organization. I also think that a lot of companies, especially startups, which there are tons of new ones that have been created just as a result of the impact of COVID-19 and how organizations are trying to respond. I think it's an opportune time for innovation to really thrive, right? Whether it was planned or not, we've all been forced to innovate and innovate quickly. So I think there is really a hotbed of opportunities that are out in the market today to really change the way that we work and challenge the status quo. And of course, events like Start at ETS are another example of how a virtual program can continue to make access to different organizations and different solutions, continue to be possible.
Well, I know the Zpryme team is really looking forward to Start at ETS. Thank you for taking some time to talk with me today, Evan. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you, Erin. Good talking.